Hello, our lovely nightmarish creatures. Before we get into our creepy tale, we would like to start off with thanking our sponsor, once again, Noble Somatic Wellness. Visit Erica Hoff to remove those aches and pains or treat yourself to a spa while enjoying some lovely prizes. Visit Noble Somatic Wellness on their website today for more ghastly fun for you and your significant other. Link will be in the description below. Wings of the Fallen, written by Dark Little Voices, Shade. I am a caretaker for the elderly at a retirement home in upstate New York. The elderly that stay here are usually here just like any retirement home. The only difference is that this was a large facility for the rich or those who had children that just didn't want to or couldn't care for them. So, as you can imagine, we have more self-entitled elderly people than other facilities do. That's not to say all of them were like this. In fact, it really was more like a 40-60 split. Maybe I'm slightly being judgy, but after what I saw, I think I have a lot to think about. It started like any Friday here at Light Point. It was busy with new patients coming in and others sent to funeral homes by their loved ones. We cremated the ones that had no one that ever came to visit them. They were then put in urns in a large room in the basement. Sometimes their ashes were scattered by some of the other nurses and myself because of wanting them to feel free. I know it sounds like superstitious nonsense, but stuff like that kept our minds focused on helping our patients who needed us. Any nurse will tell you that there are good and bad days with the job. But for me and the others here, we loved caring for them, and Andrew Flowers was no different. At least, not at first. Andrew seemed very kind, with a very nice smile for a man in his 80s. He was able to walk on his own, but needed a wheelchair from time to time. Most of his hair was gone, so he had it shaved completely off before arriving here. I felt guilty for Andrew, though. Despite looking in great shape for an 85-year-old man and still seeming to be full of life, we all noticed that there were times where he looked heartbroken, like he was still getting over losing someone that meant everything to him. We all made our guesses that perhaps it was his late wife that died or that he somehow outlived a close friend of his. The price of getting older. The odd thing was that Andrew didn't wear a wedding ring, and nowhere in his file did it mention much of his family life. So imagine to our surprise when a very beautiful young woman arrived to visit him. She had long red hair, a female bodybuilder figure, and blue eyes. "Hi, I'm here to see Andrew Flowers," she said with a warm smile. I began to worry that this was a gold digger that was wanting Andrew for his money, considering that both Andrew and the red-headed woman didn't look related at all. I know that I was just his caretaker and his nurse, but we all cared for him like a grandfatherly figure.
"Name, please?"
One of the other nurses chimed in. "Delilah Gates."
"Okay, we will quickly see if Mr. Flowers is able to see you and then call you to follow us."
The mysterious woman smiled, nodded, and took her seat in the waiting area. When Delilah visited Mr. Flowers for the first time, Andrew had been with us for 6 months. As much as we spoke with him, he never once mentioned a daughter, an adopted child, or a girlfriend at all. Granted that it was none of our business, but still. It was just one of those things that he would have brought up once or placed on his visitor's approval list, but he didn't. Instead, he would stay to himself in his room. Sometimes it would seem like he was waiting for someone. I just didn't think that it would be a woman that looked to be in her late 20s. Maybe a little younger. She wore a biker jacket and tight leather jeans. One of the other nurses called for her and told her that Andrew was excited to see her, stating that it had been too long since they had seen each other. That's when I couldn't help but to pipe up and ask, "Are you related to Mr. Flowers?" I'm not sure why I said it in such a defensive tone, but at that moment, you could cut the tension with a knife. "We just have history together, and I promised him that I would visit when I could." I kept my mouth shut as I felt embarrassed by my own sudden outburst. I was quickly reminded that anything between patients and their visitors, no matter how unusual, was between them and the doctor. I truly tried to let my feelings on the mysterious red-headed stranger go, but something about her didn't sit right with me. Eventually, she left, and I asked to have a quick check-in with Mr. Flowers. Of course, I was picked on, reminded that I was just his nurse on duty, not his mother. I ignored it, and I went to speak with Andrew. When I got to his room, I knocked on the door before entering. "Mr. Flowers? It's just me. May I come in to check on you?" I was expecting something horrible to have happened to him, but I wasn't exactly sure what. However, as lackluster as it was, I sighed with relief when I saw he was just sitting in his wheelchair and staring out the window as he used to. I checked his heart rate, his vitals, and everything else. He was fine, but I couldn't get over that smile of his. I wanted to be happy for Mr. Flowers, to have had a visitor, as not many of the other patients had anyone to come visit. But that woman with the red hair still rubbed me the wrong way. "Mr. Flowers," I said, a little unsure if I was about to cross the line or not. "Who was that woman that came to visit you today? Do you know her?" A tear welled up in his eye for a moment before he spoke.
I wish I could tell you, but if I did, you wouldn't believe me.
He barely looked away from the window as he spoke. I felt a sense of remorse for Andrew and was about to just drop it when suddenly he startled me by pounding on his window and crying.
I wanted to be with her so much, and yet I'm still trapped in this damn room.
He shouted angrily as he knocked over some dishes from his lunch from earlier. "Mr. Flowers, But before I could issue an apology, one of the other nurses popped their head in to see if everything was okay. Sadly, Mr. Flowers had to be sedated shortly after. He kept screaming over and over of being tired of being away from her. I assumed the red-haired woman from a few days ago, but I wasn't sure. We tried getting a hold of Miss Gates, but as you could guess, we couldn't find anything on Delilah Gates. It was as if she either fooled us with her fake ID or she really never existed. Sadly, due to the amount of patients we had to drop the idea of finding her. The nurses that cared for Andrew as much as I did were down because of it. We really did want to help him because he really was one of the best patients the hospital had. He made us laugh after dealing with losing the life of our other close patients. He listened to us when we had had a bad day. And he was even nice enough to volunteer to help train the newer nurses to draw blood. This wasn't to say that our other patients weren't as great or memorable, but there was just something about him that when he entered the room, it felt brighter here in the hospital. And it felt dark and gloomy when he became depressed thinking of the mysterious red-headed woman again. I arrived a little earlier for my shift than I normally would, because it didn't make sense to just wait around in the parking lot with my favorite coffee. I relaxed a bit in the break room, or should I say that I tried to relax. My mind immediately went to wondering if Andrew was okay. It was close to Christmas now, and knowing that some of the patients wouldn't have anyone to visit them made me wonder if she would visit him. Since his arrival, Delilah only visited him during the holidays, missed his birthday, and barely called him. I decided that I would try to speak with a relative of his and get more information on Delilah. Maybe one of them could solve this mystery for me. To be honest, I'm not sure why I grew more protective of Mr. Flowers whenever she was around. She was a nice woman, and whatever relationship they had was none of my business. I started my rounds the second that I was permitted to clock in. I just thought my mind could use a break before going ahead with my plan to make the call. It would be against the hospital's protocol, but something just didn't sit right with me, and as cliche as it would soon become, I would find out why. I just happened to pass Mr. Flowers' room. His door was open, but he startled me as I wasn't meaning to glance through his room as I walked by. He sat there in the dark and stared directly at me. There was no visible expression on his face. I felt like a harsh, cold breeze rushed into my shoulder blades, and I was unable to move. I wanted to call out to him, but I felt like I couldn't speak. Suddenly, I felt myself in a trance, and I moved against my will into his room. I was startled when the door slammed itself behind me. I felt myself behind me as I saw nothing but sorrow in Andrew's eyes as I heard Delilah speak. "Didn't your mother ever teach you about the cat?" she said as I felt hot strings burn deep into my flesh as it caused me to fall to my knees. That became too curious. See, it's not so much the emotion of being curious that caused its death. She continued as the strings that I couldn't see wrapped themselves around my neck, stinging as I could hear my flesh sizzling. I couldn't move. It's the fact that the kitty kept going right into her death.
Stop!
Andrew shouted as I kept feeling the strings traveling along my body, burning deep into my skin as I was now on my knees.
No more. Please. No more.
Mr. Flowers started as tears streamed down his face. "You finally surrender? And this was all it took?" she said with a mocking laughter. Andrew stood silent for a moment and then finally spoke.
I really did love you, Julia. I'm so sorry.
Andrew said as more tears flowed down his face.
I just wanted you back so bad, and I can't do this anymore.
The strings dropped me instantly to the floor as I gasped for air. I watched as the mysterious woman glided her way to Mr. Flowers. I was going to try to stop her, but he held out his hand and hushed me. I looked on in shock as she stood in front of him. Her once beautiful skin was now coated in black feathers, and as the small light from the moon touched her, giant bat wings broke out and spilled blood all over the room. "That's not me!" escaped my lips quicker than I could process why I shouted it. I couldn't stop myself. It's as if something else took over me and I ran right at that creature. "I will not let you harm him, demon!" The words left me. I was confused by my own actions. My hands grabbed her wrists in a lightning flash movement. The demonic creature screamed as I felt fury replace my fear. It struggled in my grip, and even if I wanted to, I couldn't stop whatever was going on. I could hear her bones breaking as she was visibly in a lot of pain. "Andrew, now!" I shouted.
I can't. If I do, you'll...
"I know, my love. But as I told you all those centuries ago, death is not the end." Tears fell down my cheeks, but these weren't my tears. It was her tears. Julia's tears. Andrew got up quickly and began to chant something that I couldn't understand, and I was forced to watch as thousands of what I guessed to be human souls poured directly into this creature and killed it as I heard one more nightmarish scream come from the creature. I passed out as my body crashed to the ground. When I woke up, I was in a meadow, and the light of the sun was nearly blinding. A woman with long dark hair, hazel eyes, and a slim figure was dressed in white robes as her long and beautiful wings protruded from her back. She knelt down and helped me to my feet. I wasn't sure what to think. I was too busy standing in awe as she stood there in front of me. "You have freed me, vessel, and I thank you for this. Now I may join my lover in a new age among men." I was confused, and I think she sensed it too. "It's nothing personal. You see, when God casted me out from heaven, His infinite wisdom did not take account of one thing. Unlike him, I am a very patient being. My blood felt as if it were freezing in my veins, like nitrogen to liquid. Her face revealed the burning hatred in her eyes. I was banished for the crime of falling in love with a human. Two of his creations could have done so much more together than alone. And yet, my wings were slowly ripped off. As my punishment was being implemented, I was forced to watch the one you call Andrew die slowly and painfully, so that all would learn that no angel or human could ever be together. I cried and screamed for him until she came. In an instant, my heart broke for her, but I stood silent as the fear of what she would do to me next crept its way into me. Lilith and her children came and rescued my beloved Yemen. It happened so fast that I didn't even realize what had happened until I heard the sounds of 5 bodies fall all at once. Still, it mattered not, and I ran to Yemen. Lilith tried to stop me, but I did not listen. And I died before him as the souls of my fallen brothers and sisters took one last jab at me in my broken, fallen angel form. He went insane, and Lilith granted him to swallow souls. My last words to him were— She was interrupted as Andrew, or should I say Yemen, walked behind her and took her by the hand.
Death is not the end, for we will be together again.
Yemen looked youthful. Instead of looking like an elderly man, he looked like a young man in his early 20s, and he smiled a warm smile toward her. I'm confused. What does that have to do with me or the woman with red hair? I finally spoke. Suddenly I froze in place as I felt myself holding in a sharp breath. My beloved Yemen lived because of Lilith, but it came at a price. He became the Wanderer of Dis, a legend that died out so very long ago. I then began to hear screams of pain and torture. It felt like it was beginning to be too much for me. The man who carried 3,000 souls. He chose to die to look for you, my reincarnation. For with the 3 of us, we would become one and forever be with our beloved Yemen. I slowly turned my head and saw Delilah. She had dug her newly formed talons into my left shoulder. I screamed in pain as I fell to one knee. Delilah looked angered by me.
We could have lived separate lives. I was trying to stop her, but you, of course, ruined everything,
Delilah said as she dug her talons deeper into my shoulder. Don't be so harsh to her. After all, it was all part of the one true mother's plan. I shouted for Julia to get away from me, but she ignored me and continued to walk toward me. Her white talons dug deeper into my right shoulder as I screamed in agony, and I felt my existence erasing as the last person I saw was Yemen, smiling, sickeningly sweet, at me.